Hi guys, I'm Chris Ormie, and welcome back once again to a look at our Swansea City adventures. And we're into season 10 of the save. It's the 21-22 season, so a lot of things happened. I'm just going to give you the quick rundown to try and get us as up to date as possible. So here we start out: Community Shield, Man United, and it's a big 4-0 win. Now, we know that United have been a bit tricky in years past. This wasn't one of those occasions. We have become the dominant force now in domestic football, and not even United can live with us at this point in the save. So that's something very pleasing that I didn't think would happen this quickly. It has taken a decade, but you'd expect it to take a few more years longer. But like I say, really pleasing to be on top and dominant. So from there we move on to the Super Cup, and this time it's Man City who we come into a combat with. A 3-all game, only decided by penalties. Slightly disappointed that we couldn't get the job done a little bit earlier. We dominated Man United in that Community Shield. And then you've got the Super Cup against Man City. It's another English team, very similar stature and sort of level of players, very similar formation to United. But, they pushed us a lot further. So slightly more disappointed, but really pleased to get the win, get the job done. So 2 early bits of silverware in this season, once again keeping the morale levels high and just allowing us to kick on for the rest of the season. After that, we headed out to the Club World Cup. As you can see, we got a bye. We met Antlers, who beat Al Jazeera. A big 7-0 win in that game with reserves coming up. Trumps in that. Chivas had beaten Tunisia but couldn't stop Sao Paulo. And when we clashed in the final, it was a big 4-0 win. Again, really pleasing performance against a pretty good team. And once again, just a certain note of dominance. This tournament comes at a very bad time for us. It's where we're trying to sort of, if we aren't actually top of the league, we're trying to reclaim that top spot. If we are, we're looking to extend it to try and win the league early enough to focus on the FA Cup and Champions League later on. So this competition doesn't crop up at the right time for us, but it's very important that we win it just to keep momentum travelling along nicely. The next competition to finish was the Capital One Cup. Our participation actually ended before the Club World Cup, sadly. As you can see, fourth round, beaten by Man City 2-0. Not the best performances for us. Sorry, we beat Man City 2-0 and then, not the best performance. It carried over then. West Ham, extra time, lost 2-1. So, not really happy with our performance in that competition. But it did allow us to concentrate on other competitions later on down the road. You see, though, Reading made the final, extra time win over Newcastle, a 2-1 win over West Brom, and then the odd goal win over West Ham in a 5-goal thriller. So, really nice, tight wins for Reading, grinding out the results, getting to the final. Arsenal 2-1 over Norwich, 1-0 over Everton, 3-1 over Southampton, so decent wins along the way. 1 goal in the first 2 games, 2 goals in the semi. So it was no surprise that the final itself was a very close game and a tight game with 1 goal deciding it. Arsenal grabbing that, of course, and winning the tournament. So we'd have to fight really hard now to reclaim our Capital One Cup for next season, after a very disappointing performance in my eyes. Next up, finished the FA Cup, and you can see here, after years of not winning it, we're on a roll. 5-0 over Burnley, 4-0 over Watford, 7-0 over Tottenham, and then we get to the final and beat Chelsea 5-0. So no goals conceded in that run, and a fantastic goal scoring streak as well. Not only clean sheets in every game, but the lowest score was actually 4-0. That was our smallest win, and 21 goals in those 4 games. Absolutely fantastic. Delighted with that performance, and that made up, in my mind, for the Capital One Cup. Chelsea, well, they could only beat Huddersfield 3-2, but then they did beat Man City 3-0 before ousting Reading 3-1, which Reading having a decent season in the Cups, a semi-final and final appearances. So, fair play to them. But as I say, when we met in the final, Chelsea were nowhere near as good as they needed to be to beat us. And we made sure we claimed this cup after the disappointment of the Capital One. And then on to the league. A kind of disappointing season for me. We conceded in half the games, so that's not a bad total at all. 2 draws, very happy with that. But 3 losses, I felt we were better than that. Unfortunately, at the end of the season, with the title already in the bag, I did play the youngsters and the reserves, and we did pay for that with a few losses on our record, just to blot the record a little. 33 wins, though, is a huge number, and I'm very delighted with that. 145 goals is obscene, and yeah, that's just amazing. That's just amazing. Quite a few goals actually scored this season, and Villa, who went down, 90 goals conceded. So they took the brunt of the league's frustrations. As you can see, Hull and Southampton also took 74-75 to go down. And then in mid-table and just above the relegation zone, you got some pretty decent teams conceding pretty heavily. You've got Liverpool there conceding 72 goals, which is outrageous. It's got 73 for Cardiff, and then you drop down a little bit more. 75 with Blackburn, 76 with West Brom. Huge, huge numbers. But we did win the league by 21 points, so can't really complain about that, although I just have. And so the final competition this season, the Champions League, and again, it's a successful season for us. You can see, 9-3 over Sevilla. That was a pretty decent performance from us, home and away. We did concede a few goals, but we made up for it, more than made up for it, with our goal-scoring exploits. Then 6-0 over Newcastle, which was a fantastic performance. We really ground that one out and worked hard, so delighted on that front. 7-1 over PSG. I was a little worried because, they'd overcome a very good Bayern team in the first knockout round. They overcame Celtic, who managed to put out Real Madrid. But in the end, I think we just had too much in reserve. And when I made my substitutions in both games, we pulled away from Paris Saint-Germain and really deserved to be in the final, I thought. Again, though, we faced United. I was a little bit worried over that, despite our earlier performances. They'd overcome Dortmund 7-2, PSV on away goals, I believe that is, and then Olympique Lyon. Well, that took extra time, I believe. Or was that away goals as well, actually? So, a big win in the knockouts, but then quarter and semis. United are sort of getting through by the skin of their teeth. In the final, it's a repeat of our first game of the season, which was that huge 4-0 victory over Man United. So the first and last games of the season, exactly the same result, over the exact same team. And really pleased with that. Really pleased with that. So let's have a look at the transfers now and see how we did what we did. As you can see by the amounts here, there's only one big player coming in, and that's actually a youngster. I spent a huge amount of money on a youngster. So it's pretty much the same first team as last season. We didn't make too many changes. Brought in Louis, a pretty good attacking midfielder from Crewe for a cheap amount of money. Bjorn Wallage from Club Brugge, a right back. Don't think he's going to make it, unfortunately, but I signed him because of his pretty good potential. David Perez of Sporting, solid centre back. Again, probably not going to make it, but worth the risk at the time. Then we've got Inigo from Real Madrid, a solid right wing prospect. Bought mainly because I thought I could sell him at a profit later on. Ruben Poulet, another young centre back I thought I'd risk my arm on. Then you've got Johan Avenel from Olympique Lyonnais. Now, £10 million is a huge amount, but Johan was a very promising central midfielder. Only 15, I think just about turned 16 before we signed him. And I really wanted to sign a 15-year-old for 10 million, but unfortunately, I think it was only a matter of days, maybe 1 or 2 days after his 16th birthday that he actually signed for us. But a very good prospect, and I've got very high hopes over the coming seasons. Then we went over to Chivas, £2.5 million to get Fernando Medina. He went on the bench for us, a very, very good defensive midfielder, and may not play as much as he could elsewhere, but he is an important cog in the machine for us. And it's good having him on that bench and to rotate the squad out for those cup competitions. And he does a very good job when called on. He's actually 6'5", which makes him the tallest Mexican player I have ever seen. Ilias Ba, young French centre back from Sochaux, 2.3 million. Again, I'm just trying to fill out that centre back role. I noticed we didn't have a lot in reserve or any youngsters that could really play there or on the right wing, so that's what I primarily tried to strengthen. Talking of right wingers, Edu Forcadelli, a pretty decent Argentinian right winger, came in from Barcelona pretty cheap at 1.2 million. Can make a big profit on him later on without too much struggle. And then Manuel Luciano, £700,000, a very good right back from Santos, but the young Brazilian has a few temperament issues. He likes talking back to me when we have a disagreement, which, considering his lack of consistency at times, is quite often. So, not sure whether Luciano's going to become a great player for us, but he's probably going to be a very mercurial player for somebody else, and we will make a lot of money. So 21 million and a half spent this season, which, is pretty decent considering the amount of players I got in and the players they will become, especially since half of that was spent on one youngster who I am pretty sure is going to be, a starting player for the next 10 to 12 seasons. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad. We look at the outgoing transfers, and the first one on the list, as you can see, is our goalkeeper for many years, Javier Cirelli, out to Man City for 40 million. That's the third or fourth player I've sold them at a huge fee. So, Man City really tough to beat this season, and it did come back to haunt us in that Capital One Cup, if you remember. But I felt it was time to move him on. I had a great prospect actually coming through. Another Italian goalkeeper, because Cirelli, despite being bought from Argentina, he actually has an Italian passport and declared for Italy. But his understudy, both at club and country, proved to me last season that he was worth a risk. So we sold Cirelli for big money and brought through his replacement, Di Gregorio. So very happy with how that turned out, although should have sold him to someone else rather than Man City, to be fair. Tom Sawyer out. Not really going to make it at the club. Pretty decent striker, but out to Shelbourne. It was time to get rid, really. Nathan Duffy, a decent left back, out to Watford for 4 million, and Archibald out to Hartlepool, small amount of money, but he was one of the centre backs, so I didn't feel were good enough, and that's why I was replacing people. Sean Snell to Blackburn for 5 million. I feel I did really well to get that fee. The only thing that Snell has is pace, and we'll have a quick look. Yeah, he's got a lot of pace. He's developing okay. He's actually been sold on to Newcastle, but he did come through our academy, and I was hoping he might make it, but we've already had 2 academy players hit the first team, and at the level we are playing at, it was unrealistic to expect more. So Snell went out, then Dalton out to Hamilton, good central midfielder. Josh Gibson, Sheffield. That's another defender going out, this time a left back. Just trying to keep that reserve team a little bit clearer, and we're getting decent fees at that point. Then up to Scotland, because we sold Dundee and Falkirk, Mark Moon and Barry Kenner respectively, each for $1 million, both centre backs, and both not going to make it at the club. So, we took the money and ran there and used it to reinvest in young defenders. So fairly happy with those. Keith Howe out to Plymouth for another $1 million. That's a central midfielder who wouldn't make it. So took that money. Then big money deals. We look at the 2 to Villa, Ryan Wheeler and John Brockett. The Wheeler's a young right back. He looks okay, but the money was too good. And Brockett was a striker, probably the 10th or 12th in line at the club. So to get nearly £6 million is a big fee for him. But I'm convinced both will turn out to be good players in the future. It's just that we didn't have room to bring them through at this club, so it made the most sense to sell them on. And then the biggest deal going out to the club, apart from Sorelli, but the biggest deal here for the youngsters and reserves was a young centre-back again, Alfredo Pardo. I thought he might actually make it onto the bench, but his mentals just didn't develop. He failed to learn anything off. I believe it was 3. I believe we tried to mentor him 3 times and tutor him, but he just didn't get on with any of the defenders when we were trying that out, and as a result, he didn't really develop mentally as strongly as we needed him to. Pretty good defender though, so £10 million I felt was a great deal, and he just wasn't going to develop into the player we thought he was. But it's a big profit, and that's what we see on the whole, a £75 million outgoing total. So you take away the 21 million we spent on players, add on a quarter again for 25, just about, because of the signing on fees and whatnot, and you're left with £50 million profit there or thereabouts, purely on transfers. We made money elsewhere, so it's another profitable season, which is always nice. We're building for the future, which is always important. We've slightly weakened our first team by dropping our goalkeeper, but as you saw, that only cost us the Capital One Cup, as Man City put us out. But on the whole, throughout the rest of the tournaments, we picked up the pace, we picked up the slack, and we definitely kept our foot on the gas. So almost a clean sweep, but that's something we need to sort out for next season. All in all, this was a big successful season that really kept establishing us and allowed us really to sort of decide where the future was going to be. By sort of selling these big name players over the last couple of seasons, we're probably now on one of the weakest teams I have fielded in a few seasons. But apart from Man City, there aren't too many teams domestically that are able to keep anywhere near to us. On the continent as well, we seem to be stripping away from everybody else and just extending our lead. So it's a very good performance for us, and I'm very delighted to be in this position. that'll wrap up season 2021 to 2022, guys. We're in a strong position. We've got 2 more years before we're caught up to the current date in the save. So I hope you come back, take a look at those 2 seasons, and then stay with us as we explore the future within this save. My name's Chris Ormie, and until next time, take care.